Remember when Trump warned a few weeks ago in that interview with the New York Times that if Robert Mueller wanted to go looking into any of his business dealings, that would be crossing a red line, because clearly none of those personal financial interests or business dealings had anything to do with Russia? That'd be crossing a red line. Well, now we know that his business through the Trump Organization had everything to do with Russia, even during the campaign. And, you know, we probably should have seen this coming. Back in May, we should have seen this coming when Donald Trump's lawyers started hiring their own lawyers. Michael Cohen, forever and a day, has been Donald Trump's lawyer. He's been his personal lawyer at times. He's been a Trump Organization executive and lawyer. When Trump started flirting with and then actually running for president in this past election cycle, Michael Cohen was his top and for most of the time his only political advisor. Michael Cohen is very, very, very close to Trump and Trump's business. He is Trump's lawyer, and he did hire his own lawyer this spring. He then confirmed that the committees investigating the Trump-Russia affair had asked him to give testimony and to hand over documents to those committees. Michael Cohen's response to those requests was, "No, I won't." The committees then subpoenaed him to testify and also to hand over documents. He is due, as far as we know, to testify next week on Tuesday to the House Intelligence Committee. But apparently today he handed over documents to the House Intelligence Committee, and some of those documents and a long statement about them found their way to certain reporters and publications upon the handover of these documents to Congress. And just to read between the lines here a little bit, it does not appear that what happened here is that Michael Cohen handed stuff over to Congress and Congress leaked it. I'm not speaking from direct knowledge here. I am speaking in terms of reading between the lines. The way that this is phrased and described in the reporting tonight is that Michael Cohen handed this stuff over to the House Intelligence Committee, and in so doing gave some of it to reporters and a statement about it to reporters to put the best possible spin on that information himself before investigators themselves can start chewing on it and putting it out in their own terms. I mean, and in this case, the best possible spin is still pretty bad, right? The bottom line of what we've learned now from the Washington Post and the Times is that while Trump was insisting publicly that he had no deals with Russia, and why he was questioned repeatedly about why he was being so bend over backwards positive about Vladimir Putin and Russia throughout the campaign, he never thought to mention, and apparently nobody in the Trump Organization or the Trump campaign ever thought to mention, that during the presidential campaign for 5 months of the presidential campaign, the Trump Organization was aggressively pursuing the building of a gigantic real estate project in Moscow that the Russian government had agreed to finance. Those negotiations included, in October, Trump signing a letter of intent to proceed with the project, October 2015. Michael Cohen says he spoke to Trump at least 3 times directly about the project. Michael Cohen, we now know, also wrote directly to the Kremlin last January. He wrote to Vladimir Putin's spokesman, Dmitry Peskov, to ask for direct Kremlin help in restarting discussions about the building project, which by then he said was stalled. The other Trump Organization figure involved in these negotiations is someone we've talked about before, named Felix Sater. He's a Russian-born ex-con who was convicted of a $40 million mafia-connected pump-and-dump stock scheme. In 2013, Trump, in a sworn deposition, professed to not be able to recognize Felix Sater if he had been sitting in that room that day. It's a little hard to believe. Felix Sater had been associated with the Trump Organization for years. He carried a Trump business card that described himself as senior advisor to Donald Trump. Even after Trump said he wouldn't recognize him if he were in the room, he said that in 2013. By 2015, apparently Felix Sater was recognizable again because he was working with Michael Cohen to try to make this Trump Tower Moscow thing happen. And Trump was signing off on the letter of intent to move forward with it. Michael Cohen, I think, has to testify to House Intel next week. He definitely seems to have handed over documents to House Intel today. His strategy in so doing is to try to spin what he's handed over in the best possible way. It still looks very bad. It also appears to be to try to play down the importance of Felix Sater and his involvement in this project, especially Sater's comments in the emails that have been handed over to Congress now and to some reporters, in which Felix Sater brags that there's something about this real estate deal in Moscow that in the end will result in Donald Trump becoming president of the United States. Quote, "Our boy can become president of the USA and we can engineer it. I will get all of Putin's team to buy in on this. I will manage this process. Felix Sater wrote this to Michael Cohen, quote, Michael, I arranged for Ivanka to sit in Putin's private chair at his desk and office in the Kremlin. I know how to play it, and we will get this done. Michael Cohen's strategy in releasing these documents to the press, ahead of him giving them to Congress, involves him playing down whether or not Felix Sater really could have been serious about that. He put out a statement that said, quote, over the course of my business dealings with Mr. Sater, he has sometimes used colorful language and has been prone to salesmanship. That said, this is my favorite part of the whole thing. When the Times today went to check out Felix Sater's boast that he was so connected, he could deliver the Putin side of this deal, he was so connected, he was able to arrange for Ivanka Trump to sit in Putin's private chair at his desk in his office in the Kremlin. When the New York Times checked out that boast today, the response from Team Ivanka was not exactly on brand. Ivanka Trump told the Times she did, in fact, take a brief tour of Red Square and the Kremlin when she was in Moscow with Felix Sater, but she insists she was only there, quote, as a tourist. I have to say, though, it does not seem she had a totally typical tourist experience because, quote, she said it is possible she sat in Mr. Putin's chair. But maybe that's just a coincidence. Or don't all tourist visitors to the Kremlin get to sit in Putin's chair? Alpha Bank, then VEB Bank, then Sberbank, now VTB Bank, which is the Russian government, agreeing to finance to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars a Trump Tower Moscow project that no one ever admitted to before today. That was happening during the campaign. Probably all just a coincidence. There's a lot going on today. Lots happening in the news.